Sorry, Lou, can you carry on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to talk for a bit first because part of the idea of deaf education is not just being able to sign, it's about being able to understand why we sign. So over the last 40 years, inclusive education has had a rather messy approach to it. And this is mainly because the main focus from both institutions and government policies has been on visual and clear needs, such as mobility issues or clear discrimination cases. And from that, those with invisible disabilities or slightly unclear needs have been able to just slip through the cracks. And in the last 20 years, however, there's been a major push towards a full inclusion model, which now includes things such as sign language, gestures, and more online presence as the technology is being developed. However, this is the ideal, but it's not always feasible or always appropriate, as most educational institutions are able to adapt the general inclusion model for select students. However, a full inclusion model doesn't separate general and special education pathways. So there was a study that was conducted with principal educational psychologists at England and Wales that showed the aim should instead be responsible inclusivity, which is an adaptive learning environment or approach. I know we're all academic type people, so I have got some research as well that if anybody wants it, just let me know and I can send it over to you. And this adaptive learning approach is along the idea that a label of disability is only a really small reflection of the competence and capability of a student. And this means that fully inclusive schools are not always appropriate due to considerable obstacles such as the standards versus league tables versus inclusivity discussion. And the fact that many institutions are built for the majority of students rather than the few. Now, in standard inclusive education, we focus on things when we're focusing on neurodiversity and sensory processing issues. For anybody that's not aware, neurodiversity covers things such as dyslexia, autism, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, that sort of thing. And sensory processing can range from simple things such as autism and not being able to touch things to deafness to auditory processing disorder. And these 5 key points mainly focus on the idea of the use of inclusive language, the facilitation of lip reading, clear speech, clear visuals, and clear structure. And each of these can be boosted slightly depending on the situation, but such as using a microphone to increase the clarity of speech or using a mixture of pictures and text, which increases structural and visual integrity. So, as I'm sure, I mean, you've got to be living under a rock to not know what's happening at the moment, but educational institutions, and so I'm a private tutor, so I know what goes through a lot of junior sort of schools, but we're having to make changes in order to stay in the government guidelines for COVID-19. And this means that being inclusive in education is becoming naturally more difficult. And I know certainly a lot of people that I speak to, which previously thought of themselves as hearing, have gradually noticed that they actually rely a lot more on clear sound and on lip reading than they realised. And this means that the use of masks has become increasingly difficult for those with sensory processing disorders. So a way to combat that, which I know the university is already talking about, is use of clear visors or clear masks. And along this line as well, though, if we reduce the barrier between sound and speech, it becomes clearer. So, for instance, moving your microphone into a better position. A lot of lecturers actually wear your microphone sort of way down here, which is beyond the cutoff line. And really, you want it as close to the mouth as possible, which I know isn't great for sanitary purposes. However, if you're able to clean it regularly and it provides a much better sound, but also connects to hearing loop systems, which are not just used by those that are deaf, but also those with sensory processing disorders. And working alongside this, if we can increase clear visuals and clear structure, we can increase engagement as well as productivity from the student. So for instance, if we use signs and gestures within our visuals as well as pictures, and remember that pictures aren't just supposed to be there as a picture, it's supposed to be used as an aid. Therefore, putting a picture on with a bit of text can bring a lot more focus back to it, as well as keeping the structure in place, which allows you to bring students back to your attention, and also keeps track of those that have such as attention disorders where you just sort of lose track. But if you know where this content is, you can go back and forth. And we are using online learning more at the moment, and it's different, but it's sort of safer. And as Jessica just talked about, online learning also increases engagement, and there have been studies about this, but it also increases engagement in disabilities. Therefore, the three main points that I've sort of managed to get from online learning is video, software, and short. Making sure that you always have your video on as a lecturer or as a teacher or just as an instructor. Having your video on increases students wanting to actually see you and talk to you, but also facilitates lip reading. And this is increasingly important as Wi-Fi, as I'm sure we all know, is bad at best of times. And this means that I know most of us don't like to look at ourselves. I have two screens purposely so that I know that the captions are working, but I'm not looking at myself. And I know this is really awkward, but we've all got used to it, and Panopto has become a greater thing across the campus and is really great. However, if we, instead of using hour-long lecture videos, we manage to condense them into 20-minute videos which follow a script or something that can be uploaded as a transcript or even as captions, you'll also increase engagement and quality of students' work because it's easier to follow, especially with a contents page. And this has been shown across focused groups, studies, and student engagement lectures. And also just picking your software. So for instance, Microsoft Teams is really good because it does have captions, and the captions, providing that you speak clearly, are really good, which allows a much of what's going on. Now, going on to the signing sort of things, we took a look at a long list that was sent through to us, and we've sort of picked out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words and a couple of phrases, because the thing with sign is that if I throw you into it and you panic, you're less likely to use it. And this is the thing such as Panopto as well, when lecturers are just shown how to use it and it confuses them, they're less likely to use it. And therefore we picked out 10 easy words, a couple of phrases, and these should be relatively easy to just put into your work and put into your lectures in order to increase friendliness and sort of increase that sort of ability to communicate with other students which are struggling, especially with how isolating it is with face masks at the moment. So as you saw Chris doing, hello is the same as goodbye, and we just sort of wave our hand, so it's hello or goodbye. And this is a really nice way because it shows that you're actually just saying, I know you're deaf and I'm trying.
I'll come off. I'll add my camera now, just so in the recording, got someone following you.
Thank you. But a lot of sign is, it's not to help. We don't expect anybody to be fluent at all in sign. It's to help you relocate what's going on and to follow and track conversations. So just as one or two signs in a conversation can really pull back your attention and understand it. So hello and goodbye are very simple, and it's just hello, goodbye, and please and thank you, as I just did. They're the same. Some people do it different, but it's like a regional accent. We say the same things, we just say it slightly differently. So please and thank you as well. And it's just about being polite. So for instance, if you're saying to a student that you know is deaf, can you do this, please? Just putting in that please and thank you can really show that you actually are being really polite and kind to them as well, because it's going to be stressful not only for them, but for you too. And students that are with a sensory processing disorder or disabled really struggle with integrating normally, let alone under COVID. So we've also got sorry as well, which is rubbing on the centre of your chest. And I personally quite like sorry because it does just say as it is, but it also allows you to sort of just put it in and be like, look, I'm sorry, or, you know, sorry, I can't sign very well. So obviously signing this is typically lower down your body, but it's a little bit difficult to show on camera. So just signing. Some things which are more COVID aware as well. So for instance, exempt, because deaf students, as you're probably aware, are exempt from wearing face masks, especially when talking to each other. And we also get somebody else that's exempt so that they can talk to us. A lot of deaf students and a lot of deaf people are still wearing the face masks. However, when we're talking to somebody else that is deaf, we do take it off so that we can lip read, because a lot of signs actually are really difficult with a face mask on because you need that lip patterning. So exempt is just exempt, like they're moving away. Hold on, exempt. So like they're moving away. And it's the same for remove as well, because if they're asking you to remove your lanyard, not lanyard, remove your face covering, it's because they need you to, because they can't understand what you're saying. And they will step back so that they're in a safe distance, but they need to be able to see your lips because it's increasingly difficult. So this is just remove. Yeah, so remove. And it's just taking, like you're taking it off and putting it to the side. This is a thing that I'm increasingly coming about over the fact that people aren't aware of what the sunflower lanyard is. This is a green lanyard with yellow things, and I've left mine downstairs, with yellow sunflowers on. And this simply means I have an invisible disability, or I have a disability that you can't outrightly see. And it's a way of saying I don't actually have to wear a mask under government guidelines. A lot of us still do. So for instance, I wear my lanyard at the same time as wearing my mask, but it's because if I freak out or something, it means I can take off my mask, and it's supposed to be that I have no judgment or no questions about it. But lanyard is really simple. It's very similar to tie, which is just sort of like you're showing the tie, but instead you're going to show it going down, as in lanyard, because you're showing the lanyard. Or if you don't remember it, we all wear lanyards anyway, especially staff, you all wear your lanyard or something. Point to it. Just point, gesture. Sign is not just sign, it's also gesturing. So making clear that this is what you're talking about, that you're talking about your lanyard. It's the same for t-shirt. If you can't remember the sign for t-shirt or shirt, you go shirt, like you're pointing to the shirt. Because they just help you to pinpoint the conversations. You have hand sanitizer or washing hands. BSL is gradually catching up. It takes a long time for anything in BSL to sort of get around, because it's a language that is across an entire 4 countries, and more, because we follow along Auslan as well, and New Zealand follows us. So it's like we all sort of rely on each other. But we're gradually catching up, and there are a lot of new phrases that are going on. So for instance, hand sanitizer, you're going to use the pump and then you're just going to wash your hands. Which is quite a nice sign. It's easy to remember. At the same time, a lot of people naturally do things as well, so they will naturally gesture towards it. Like you'll naturally gesture towards whiteboard, or you'll naturally sort of like when you're talking and you go, oh yeah, you need to wash your hands to a child, sort of thing. Face mask, again, it's just we're going to show the mouth being covered, so it's face mask or mask. And they're the main sort of single signs. The key important phrases that we've gone with is any questions, can I help, do you understand? Also, can everybody see? Because this one's quite important again, because it's always making about, the key thing to remember is always lip reading, if possible. So your lighting, your microphone, everything, it all comes back to lip reading, because it's not just for deaf students. So any questions, we're just going to draw a question mark with 2 fingers. So any questions, like, so either with a pen, I'm there. So just any questions, which is nice, and it's an easy one to remember. Can I help? It's a thumb up on your hand, and you're going to take it out, and it's just, can I help? Or can you help? As in, like, can you help me? Which is something that you might actually get, because as students that have sensory processing with the mask, we're reverting back to sign language gradually. So while we do speak, a lot of us have sign language as either our first or second language, and we're gradually putting it back more because we're uncomfortable. And therefore, if anybody does speak another language, that was their first language, you'll find a lot of people that I know that are revert back to it in times of stress or uncomfortable or anxiety sort of thing. And it's what we do too. Can I understand as well? Like, do you understand, or does everybody understand? So understand is just sort of like it's a light bulb moment of sort of like a light bulb. And whether you're asking an individual or a group, so it's just, do you understand, or does everybody? So that hand comes round, and it's, so does everybody understand? And finally, can you see? And this one is really important, as I said, and that's just, you're going from the eyes with a questioning look of, can you see? And I've tried to keep those really simple. As you've seen, we use SSE more than BSL because it's easier with those that are hearing, and it enables you to really focus on just adding those in to help you get a little bit of information. Like, for instance, if you're at a pub with some family members and someone gets up and you haven't heard, and they go and they just do the sign of a drink, you know that they're meaning, do you want a drink? And this is just sort of it's just a sort of way of prompting you almost. So I've managed to actually keep mine short so we can try and get back on time.
And it's appreciated.
I am one for timing, so but if anybody does have any questions, just either email me, or I've also got a load of research as well, which has been going on for years, and I'm sure Mike won't mind me saying, but digital education are always there to help. So they've been great as well, and we like to always thank them. So thank you.
Thank you, Lou. So can I just add to that? The Lincoln BSL is a student-run group. If everyone wants to just unpin Lou, because we'll move on to the next speaker very soon. Can I advise everyone just follows Lincoln BSL on Twitter? They do a sign of the week. I learned how to say cheesecake, fantastic. I've used that sign a lot. They do a sign of the week. There's loads of information about inclusion, and I think the key thing here, and I hope Lou and Mike and everybody who's interested in this kind of areas, is ask questions. I don't think, in all my experience, I don't think anyone's ever been offended by asking. And a lot of these kind of conversations that we're having with Lou started from me following him on Twitter and asking how we could do this better. But Lou's absolutely fantastic. Really rate Lincoln BSL. Please follow them on Twitter. They are an absolutely, for me, they exemplify the very best in student engagement and student participation. So yeah, please give them a little bit of support.